I was completely isolated, and Numenor is completely isolated band when it comes to music as well.
On March 5th, Numenor released their fourth studio album, Draconian Age. And so for this episode of our interview series, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the band's frontman Marko Miranović and speak about the album, his affection with Tolkien, Blind Guardian, and much, much more. So buckle up, enjoy the episode, and here you go. Hey Marko, how's it going, man?
Hello there. Hello. Greetings, Belgrade. Greetings, Ukraine.
Yeah, man. How is everything? How is everything in Serbia these days with all the pandemic and all this stuff?
Actually, to be honest, more or less everything is going quite okay. Because I'm preoccupied when it comes to Numenor new release. On one hand, on the other, I'm doing this Blind Guardian book and biography alongside with the band members, especially Hansi Kürsch as well. So more or less, I'm preoccupied and I don't thinking about the COVID at all. As long as the posts are working and Skype is working, I'm quite fine with that.
Yeah, that's good because you got to ship a lot of those CDs these days, right? Because you guys.
Yeah. Abnormally, abnormally each day I need to, spend 30 minutes waiting in the post to send another amount of packages of T-shirts and, CDs, some new, some people are buying the entire discography as well, the entire Numenor catalog. So, yeah, more or less, actually, I was having a day off today, so to say.
Good for you,
I'm
good for you, man.
just buying the packages, right?
Nice, man. You actually started speaking about this, right? You have recently released your new studio album, Draconian Age, on March 5th. Congrats on the release, man. I had a listen and I enjoyed it a lot, I gotta say. So could you talk a bit about the creative process behind it and how did all of this come together into this one piece that we can hear today?
Yes, indeed. We have, just released, so to say, a brand new record, Draconian Age. This is fourth full length when it comes to Numenor. And actually, this is 6th CD of us, which is actually very interesting because we have already reissued our second and third album. Because at that time it was like, we it happened that we have a chance to reissue these records because we have deal with two labels and we just added few songs more and new covers, etc. because we always wanted as a kids to have more CDs, so it's like that. So that authors actually at the end of the day everything why we have so many CDs and why we have so many CDs and as we have already privately talking, we are already on the way to have one more CD already in the May to reissue the first record. Colossal Darkness as well. So this will be 7th CD
pretty cool.
In our catalog, so to say. So yeah, we are very active when it comes to this. But let's turn once more topic to a brand new record, Draconian Age. We have worked for this album, I don't know, like 2 years and plus bonus more, few months. And from the very beginning, when we have started this record, it was like, okay, we are doing something that we have already done before. With the first two songs that we have composed were actually Feanor and Mirror, Mirror, Rock of Stars. It's not the cover version of Blind Guardian, anyways. It's completely different, actually.
I think many people thought that when they just read it right away. I thought so too, and then I clicked on it and I was like, oh no, that's a completely different song.
It's completely, actually, it was not a trick at all, because when we did, I actually, sang in the refrain Mirror, Mirror, because it's about this wizard, actually, the alchemist, which we have already on the first record. There is a song, The Alchemist. Then on the second record, there is a song, The Arkenstone. So Mirror, Mirror was a sequel, so to say, to these songs. lyrically and when it comes to lyrics as well. And when our main composer Serbian asked for the, I always wanted to label this song, to name this song "A Roll of the Stars," because "A Roll of the Stars" is a item actually taken from Dungeons and Dragons. Edition 5, actually, one of the very rare items. When you get this item, you can travel to different astral planes. Actually, this was the idea. And also the Arkenstone. We have a song, the Arkenstone, is also taken from Dungeons and Dragons. So it's musically and lyrically, it was a sequel.
That's interesting.
But he was actually very fond of the title Mirror, Mirror because he loved Candlemas. It has nothing to do with the Blind Guardian anyway. So it was a little tribute to Candlemas, Mirror, Mirror song, and it's much older actually than Blind Guardian ones, because Serbian is more into Candlemas, I'm more into Blind Guardian, so to say. So, and Candlemas is also has also quite a lot of doom, but very fantasy written lyrics as well. And when we are composing the music in this moment for a brand new record, the first song, Tunnel, that we are composing is in the vein of, completely in the vein of Candlemas, Chapter 6 album, because Thomas from Therion, but he has done the vocals for Chapter 6, will contribute in this song. So yeah, we are very inspired by Warriors, actually, different bands, and this time it was Candlemas. He wanted to make a tribute to Candlemas, actually, with his title. So it's actually a little bit, strange, but people caught up completely wrongly, but yeah. On the other hand, when it comes, so we have started the recording process with these two songs, and it was 2018 as far as, or 19, sorry, as far 18 as far as I could recall, November, and both of these songs were like sounding like what we did on Chronicles from the other, from the Realms Beyond, our third record, and then we have started to develop more style, and we started, and then we made a song at the Gates of Moria. It was a black metal song, actually, which turned out to be later Make the Stand with Hansi. Because I chose this song, at that time we have this song, and this will go on perfectly with Hansi's vocals. And we have two songs. One was Where the Battle Rages On, which is black metal song, actually. And it was we could also choose this song, but it will not go perfectly with Hansi's vocals, if you get what I mean. So this one was more power metal song, At the Gates of Moria, and later on become a video and the song Make the Stand. And I think that this song, alongside with Where the Battle Rages On, somehow has marked the sound of Draconian Age, which later on turned out to be our most successful album, and there is no question about that. It's going to be our most selling album as well. Although Sword and Sorcery, from 2015 was so far the best selling album. It was the album that definitely marked the path and made the path for Numenor, but it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, makes sense, man. And what about the name Draconian Age? Where did you derive that album name from?
It's actually very interesting because I was listening Therion album, I Was a Rock with Lucid Dreaming. This is not even an album. And the album starts with Draconian, and there is a song in Remembrance, and the album starts with Draconian Age. He sings actually that. And I was like very fond of that. And I like the title Draconian Age, but also there is a reference with Draconian Times from band Paradise Lost, 1995. And to be honest, I was raised on that album.
My favorite Paradise Lost album.
At that time we were very young teenagers, like 13 or 14 years old. And to be honest, I was still not aware of Blind Guardian at that time, because Paradise Lost was very popular, like Typo Negative, Paradise Lost, etc. So Draconian Age, Draconian Times, it was a perfect, and we were like, wow, okay, this was, but nevertheless, the title quite works when it comes to Numenor, because it does go on, and especially with the cover artwork and the atmosphere that we have made. So I had this title and the idea, for this title for a very long time. And why not to use it this time? Draconian Age really sounds, quite cool. And on the other hand, it explains the music of Numenor as well, which is quite unique, so to say, at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%, man. And this is your first album with a new label, right? Elevate Records, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
How did this label change? Did it have any effect on the way you guys were working on the album and on the releasing of this record?
No, not at all. Actually, we released a video with Hansi, and just like in 30 minutes or something like that, the guy just contacted me, but over Serbian. Serbian has also a band called Logia, which was actually very popular here in Serbia like 20 years ago. They were abnormally popular here, but metal here was very popular, but it was like 15 years ago. So he already knew about the stuff, and he was immediately, interesting to release a record, to publish a record, and we make a deal. It was like in 30 minutes, something like that. So, the only thing that I really wanted to this republishing of our first record, also Darkness. So it was a kind of a deal. Yeah, and I liked the way how Feanor from Elevate Records from Italy started, with some idea to promote the band and the new record, because to be honest, although the band was already established and popular in a way before this record and everything, we have dealt with some labels which were not so when it comes to, promoting interesting information. So more or less the entire promotion was done with me. I have done the entire promotion on Facebook or over my contacts. Or already Blind Guardian helped, because we did cover version of Valhalla, which didn't turn out to be very popular. And Blind Guardian 2 or 3 times has already shared it on their Facebook, etc. Hansi helped me at that time, So the band was actually very popular, but all the promotion was done by the band. For the very first time, we have seen something really interesting for us, that the label started to promote the band. They really did a great promotion, especially when it comes to Italy, because Italy was still not covered by us, so to say. So this time it was like, perfect. There were lots of reviews, news in publishing, etc. And on the other hand, Blind Guardian helped when it comes to promotion, and Hansi Kürsch as well. So it was, like double promotion, because it's not only that he has done the song, but, and recorded with me vocals, but he did video, he shared it also on Blind Guardian page, and he will share it as well in future. So it was like, we had a song, it was like for us to be on a very big label. For example, I have compared with other bands, for example, which are Napalm Records, etc. And more or less we have the same promotion as them, because we have a really, the single with Hansi, it was very popular. And on the other hand, Elevate Records did for the very first time quite serious promotion. So for the very first time, we will have reviews in upcoming German magazines like Metal Hammer, Rock Hard, D Forever, Sweden Rock. I have heard that it's already published.
Nice.
Probably there will be some, interviews as well. So, this when it comes to the promotion, this album is definitely the one that is most covered.
It does look like it's a step up in terms of the coverage, 100%, man. And so congrats on this. I agree with you. I think the label has done a great job. It has made it over here in Ukraine as well. A couple of metalheads and metal zines actually wrote about it as well. So it's a pretty cool thing, man. And you started speaking about this briefly, but what are some of the lyrical lines that are running through this album? Which themes did you choose to cover on this record?
When it comes to this record, and when it comes to all Numenor records, I always have seen. I have spoken about this topic several times with Hansi Kürsch. I always have seen Numenor as lyrical. And ideological, so to say, answer to Blind Guardian, not the musical. When it comes to music, it's definitely
very different. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but when it comes to lyrics, when it comes to Blind Guardian lyrics, they were inspired. At the first time when I started to listen to Blind Guardian, it was like 1995, 1994. The first things were like Tolkien and Murkoch at that time. So I more or less try to focus on these topics as well when it comes to Numenor. And of course I added a few touches of mine, some songs are influenced even by Lovecraft, like The Alchemist directly. Also some songs are influenced by some Dungeon and Dragon stuff, On each record we have this, like The Arcanist, like A Robe of Stars, as I have mentioned before. But on the other hand, we have some records which are loosely based on some fantasy topics, not directly, like Hall of the Mountain King. When I wrote these lyrics for this record, it was inspired by the dwarves and the Tolkien, cassettes. But on the other hand, it was a fantasy, you just have imagination, like the dwarves which are feasting in in dwarvish halls. So when I wrote these lyrics, and Serbian was really, attracted by and inspired actually by the lyrics he wrote later on the song. And for example, we have the Battle Rages song, and this is pure stuff about the Elric and the Murkoch. But for the first time on this album, I was inspired by a movie or a series, so to say, Vikings, Twilight of the Gods.
Okay.
But when it comes to music, when it comes to lyrics of Numenor, they were always like darker, so to say, dealing with death from the very first record to the last one, so to say. And there is a sort of, tragic moments when it comes to Numenor and, this doom-like atmosphere. It is like Blind Guardian at the very beginning, because Blind Guardian also was marked as very dark band. But it was like 30 years ago. But yes, definitely they were, And I think that when it comes to Numenor, because we have roots in black metal as well, and doom, I was always inspired by some, harsh events, so to say. So on the new record, at least 2 or 3 songs are dealing with the, tragic heroes. In a way, whatever you do, the death awaits at the end. So maybe something is better, to face the death, earlier, if you get what I mean, like in the song like Twilight of the Gods. For example, this is a song about the death, when I speak about the death in the battle, so to say, because of what we have learned from the history about the Vikings, they were, what can you do? They were laughing in the face of death, before the battle, and that's why they were so furious. At the end of the day, also, for example, where the battle rages on, whatever Elric do, death awaits for him at the end, and he is completely doomed. So yes, for example, the Sailor on the Seas of Fate on the first record also speaks, about the idea departing from this world, but by death. So I don't see death always as a tragic incident, so to say. In a way, also there was a song "The Alchemist" at that time, and at the time I was like 32, and the song actually is about the novel Lovecraft Alchemist, and the main protagonist actually is going to face his own death at the at the age of 32. He's doomed, actually, to find the alchemist who is waiting for him. Probably some people already are aware about this novel as well. So one more song, speaking about these tragic events. So Numenor music could be very heroic on one side, but also, a tragic, very tragic on the other hand. So we are mixing this very doomed, because all the heroes like Elric, for example, of Melniboné, or Corum, in a way are eternal champions and doomed to die. Or so what they could do is actually to face their death as soon as possible, or to find Tunnelor. And Tunnelor is actually, when they die, they will find Tunnelor. They will find the peace at the end of the day. So it's like on the quest for Tunnelor, we lost our way.
Oh man, on this cheerful note though, of doom and death.
In a way, yes. I remember that I like to read the comments, how people react to our music as well. And I really like the one comment, there was a track, Over the Mountains Cold, inspired by Tolkien. And there was a comment here, every time when I listen, a new Numenor song, I really like this comment, I feel, how hard it's at tragic moments, but also, a heroic battle stand, so to say. So, yes, in a way, we are, but all these black metal bands that we were raised on were inspired as well on, by the death. Many, like Dissection, for example, he was consumed by death at the end of the day, So I don't see death always as a bad, thing, so to say. So yes, it's really complicated. We are definitely not, so to say,
the happiest band.
Power metal bands. Definitely, the lyrics are not happy, but they're completely 100% fantasy inspired.
Okay. And talking about fantasy, I think that by now you know, and most of the viewers who are going to be watching us know that I am a Tolkien nerd myself, right? And since your name and some of the lyrics, at least, are derived from the Tolkien Legendarium, can you just share what does this world mean for you, and how did you personally get introduced to it?
It was a long time ago. Now it was like maybe 30 years ago, when I was a kid at that time. I have actually heard about Tolkien, not read it at that time. And I found somewhere these, verses, but in Serbian, And I was at that time very charmed by this, because it was like... you didn't have anything at that time, something like that. And I was very interesting because they were speaking about the elves who are living for eternity and they are immortal, and the dwarves who are also have a long lives. And at that time I was a kid and I don't know, I spoke about this in few interviews. I was really inspired by the idea to, live forever or something like that, not to grow old. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know why, in particular, don't know why, but and then I dig for Tolkien, and somehow in the same time it happened that I found Blind Guardian. So it has started in this way. Yeah, and from German metal hammers. And mark my words, during this time there was complete isolation here in Serbia, because there were wars raging all around us, etc. So I wanted to isolate myself as much as I can, which I have later on done it more or less my entire life, so to say. And I started to listen Blind Guardian and to read Tolkien as well. I got the books and the music. It was like soundtrack for the lyrics, and immediately it changed my life and my interest. But anyway, what I'm trying to tell, I was aiming and searching for this even before I found Blind Guardian or books like Tolkien or Michael Moorcock. So I was already searching for this, and this was waiting for me in one way or another. And if I remember correct, before even I started to listen metal, I learned about Tolkien, and there was a cartoon.
Yeah.
Bakshi, yeah. From 1978.
78, yeah.
And I really like this cartoon today, even more than movies.
It's freaking amazing, man. Oh.
At that time, it was actually very dark when I have watched it for the very first time, and I was like very thrilled by the atmosphere and everything.
I mean, I think you'll agree with me that Lord of the Rings isn't really a happy story, right? I mean, it deals with a lot of heavy topics, and that's why the gloom of that movie kind of really, for me at least, represents the book itself in an amazing way.
I completely agree with you, and somehow this cartoon really worked for me at that time, and I was thrilled, and I wanted to find the books, and I found the books as well. So I started with Blind Guardian, and the books that I was like 13 or something like that, 14, I remember. So at the same point, because of some economic sections, or I don't know, we didn't went to school, so I had plenty of time. So it's a really strange story, because I was completely isolated, and Numenor is completely isolated band when it comes to music as well, on the other hand. So it was very hard, for us in Serbia to find. It was at that time. It was very hard, even in Germany, to find Blind Guardian CDs. Actually, my aunt and my brother sent me CDs, and it was not so easy to them to find CDs anyway. So when they sent me CDs,
tell me about it, man. I'm from Ukraine. I grew up in very similar situation, right? After the fall of the Soviet Union, it was impossible to find anything.
Yeah, I recall as well. I recall this time when it comes to ex-Soviet Union, like Russia and Ukraine, since we have a lot of fans from both country and Belarusia as well. So more or less it was the same situation. But I think when it comes to Serbia, it was even worse, because they were not only about the wars, but it was somehow isolated,
Okay.
It was a small country, isolated country, and there were not so many people here which were interested into fantasy or metal stuff. We did have an explosion of metal stuff here during 2000, after the wars start. We have, but it was like 5-6. It lasted 5-6 years, and then it collapsed.
Okay.
We don't know why. But metal was popular only for 5 or 6, and I think metal was popular very in Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia, but it was during the 80s. So some of the older metalheads here,
as a sign of protest, most likely, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. It was not a sign of protest, like in Soviet Union. It was completely different here. People loved the music in Yugoslavia.
Okay.
I think people really loved the music in Yugoslavia, be it metal or rock or something like that. People loved the music at that time. But these people are now like in their 50s or 60s, who at that time, there were some of the bands. There were some of the bands, to be honest, I'm not quite aware of them. I just know the names, but some of these people are still around. And they are speaking about the 80s, but it was completely different. Mark my words, as far as I have learned.
Okay. Makes sense, man. And why do you personally think there's so many metalheads around the world also happen to be Tolkien fans? What is it between, heavy music and imaginary world of Middle-earth that, draws the same type of people together?
To be honest, I completely don't know. At the end of the day, when it comes to metal, actually, we could learn that from the very beginning, from the very start, it was very influenced by fantasy stuff. The first stuff actually that inspired, but brutally at that time inspired actually the bands was Conan, not Tolkien, because of the movies. So you have the bands like Manowar, and few bands at the end, and during that time they were brutally inspired by the Conan movies. So when it comes to lyrics, when it comes to image, etc., even Iron Maiden as well was inspired by. When it comes to image, when you look at the Bruce Dickinson, you can compare it with Conan as well.
They were also trying to mimic, all of them trying to mimic Rob Halford in a way, who got it from a slightly different part.
Yeah, at that time. But nevertheless, Conan was very popular, and later on, Tolkien started to be popular with the so-called invasion of during the late 80s and the beginning of 90s invasion of the bands, especially when it comes to black metal. So most of the stuff that you can find from especially from Norway, they have at least the names taken from Tolkien. But also you have Blind Guardian, there was Kiritungo, etc., etc. So when it comes to, I'm not speaking only about Tolkien, I'm always largely speaking about the fantasy stuff. So from the very beginning, metal was inspired by some anti-religious stuff, so to say. Bands which were more, like satanic or Satan-wise, like Merciful Fate or Venom or Bathory as well on one hand, and on the other, fantasy, like Rainbow, and some occult stuff as well. So, a little bit dark, but always, there is a thing that metal should be dark in one way or another, if you get what I mean, at the end of the day. So that's why I was never able to, or open, so to say, to get into these new bands like Powerwolf or Sabaton, etc., because I was raised on completely other stuff that, at that time, Typo Negative was very popular. Paradise Lost. Blind Guardian was not popular at that time either. You cannot see them on German cover magazines, but you can see Paradise Lost and Typo Negative all the time. Blind Guardian appeared for the very first time on cover version of Metal Hammer. It was during the Nightfall, 1998. So it really needed some time, to get them on the cover. So this was completely different time, and that's why I have so many problems with so-called this new age metal bands to accept them.
Okay, makes sense, man. And speaking back about the album, and on this album you've recorded a collaboration with Hansi Kürsch of Blind Guardian, as you mentioned, right? How was it working with him, man?
But to be honest, very easy, because Hansi and I, we are friends for a very long time. We tried to recall, but it was 2010 when we have started to work together. At the edge of time, I hope it was, it was here in Belgrade when they did a video, and Nuclear Blast is asking me to do, I don't know, but so many interviews. Some of them were not even published because I could speak German as well.
Nice.
So at that time, I have done already like 10 interviews with them, just in 2 days. And some for me, some for Nuclear Blast, some for Blind Guardian forum page at that time.
Yeah.
And then during these 2 or 3 days, we learned each other's, and I was mostly, Hansi and I spent a lot of time, not because of interviews, but, we just spent a lot of time. And with Marcus, Andre was a little separated. He was doing some other things as well. So nevertheless, you can still find these videos, actually, when I'm they're very old, 10 years, 11 years from now, when we were speaking, and these videos were filmed. And later on, Nuclear Blast asked me to do even more interviews with them, and the people from Blind Guardian page, because they loved how I'm doing this stuff. And Hansi and I started our friendship, and I started to travel a lot, like in Germany on many festivals, and I met with them, here and there at Wacken, like Metal Days, etc. Sometimes we did the interviews, sometimes we spent, sometimes speaking, but it was nothing, so spectacular. And later on, we started actually to work on Blind Guardian book and biography. But this was not initially my idea at all, I remember actually Mark Frostenas asked me, somehow he learned about me from the interviews, and he learned about Numenor, so he wanted to have a contact, not because of book, but because of completely other stuff, with me. But then I think he added me that he is working on the book of Blind Guardian and biography as well. And, we agree both, as far as I could remember, that I should focus on Hansi Kürsch, because to cover his story.
Okay.
Because musical-wise, lyrical-wise, and because I also read a lot of books as well, like Hansi, and he was aware of my interviews, he liked the interviews, and I think that it was all our idea, and we have started to work with the first records, like Battalion Superior, Follow the Blind, etc., and it was cool, and we later on, continued, but it was like already 2 years or even more ago. So our contacts have become very frequent, and today is like more or less each day we are in contact and sharing some, informations. And after this interview, I'm going to have a chat with him, with Hansi. And sometimes we spend time speaking, chatting about private things, and it was completely a natural thing to do one song together.
Okay, that's good.
Of course, it is a dream come true, of course, But on the other hand, this song is a tribute to our friendship, if you get what I mean. So, yes, it is like, at the end of the day, it's like that, And simply, we are more friends than two people, working on some stuff when it comes to Blind Guardian, Numenor, or any other music, that we are dealing with.
I gotta tell you, man. I gotta tell you one thing that I was at first surprised, but I kind of want to share that because of Numenor's mix of musical styles, musical genres that you guys incorporate, right? Starting from black metal, incorporating power metal, and so on and so forth. Your vocals sound actually extremely well with Hansi's. I was very much surprised because you do have very much different vocal techniques. You do have different approach to vocals and so on and so forth, yet they do sound very cohesive in a way. So I think it's a great collaboration. I think you guys did an amazing job, and I'm glad it worked out like this, because it is a fun and great song. Not fun lyrically, we learned that, but but it's a very enjoyable track.
But as I said, thanks a lot. When it comes to my vocals, there are derivates, from Norwegian black metal scene from the 90s, because I listen a lot of these bands. So it's quite natural. But many people who are older also said that my vocals remind them on early Carcass albums and their records. So, okay, I didn't have that in mind, but maybe, perhaps, I don't know, but this song is a mixture between dark fantasy and fantasy, if you get, and even Hansi is not classical heavy metal or power metal vocalist, so we were like, this could, work, and I think it was very interesting to him, because he never done it so far with a black metal.
Exactly.
With a black metal band, so it turned out to be very interesting. And as I said, this song is about originally at the gates of Moria. I always, have in mind the dwarves who are battling, until the last stand, the last breath, at the gates of Moria or at the gates of Erebor. It matters not. It matters not, but it's a fighting song in a way.
Okay.
They were always like I always was inspired by the dwarves more than else. Like they were fighting until the end, and they were a harder race, so to say, so to speak.
This is actually very interesting, man. And you mentioned that you're working on the Blind Guardian book biography by the band, right? When is that going to be out, and what's going to be covering?
It's very hard to do. It's very complex one. When we started to work, and when I have started to work on this book, I learned many things during past 2 years that it's going to be very complex one.
Mm-hmm.
Blind Guardian the story about Blind Guardian is very complex story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you having like, I don't know, some bands like Hammerfall, for example, which are more or less based around the music, and that's all. Or Motley Crue, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And more or less, but it's tough there, if you get what I mean. When it comes to Blind Guardian, the things are completely different. They have a very strong fan base. The people want to learn about the lyrics, the books, the movies that inspire the band. During all these periods of time, how the things started to develop. Also, we found actually that there are lots of generations, so to say, of Blind Guardian fans. For example, I'm Imagination from the other side generation because I started with this particular album, and that is my favorite album. But there are Nightfall, there is a Nightfall generation, there is Opera generation, there is even a Twist and the Meat generation.
Really? Already?
Yeah. This is very interesting, actually. There is at the Edge of Time generation, and I could recall this time because for Mark or me, maybe Twist and the Meat is the weakest album. But for this generation, Twist and the Meat is one of the better albums.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot understand, for example, albums like Follow the Blind, which I really like a lot. Mm-hmm. Follow the Blind was always marked as the weakest record of Blind Guardian, and I was always into the Follow the Blind, particularly. So there are a lot of generations, and all these albums have influenced different people. Mm-hmm. And now when I'm in contact with so many musicians, from Twilight Force to Persuader and so many others, which are more or less at my age. So we are old now.
Come on, man.
They always added one thing. They were very influenced by Blind Guardian, massively influenced. People started, when it comes to Blind Guardian, when you enter into their music, you immediately start to get interested into the books, into fantasy stuff, into movies, into Dungeons and Dragons, into video games, etc. So it has a large influence. The Blind Guardian has a really complex biography. So, for example, during the late 80s and at the very beginning of the 90s, it was completely other, but they were already popular at that time. In 1995, they were popular. But later on, they're becoming more and more popular, and we are trying actually now to find what was their top moment, so to say. For me, their top moment was during 2002, 2004, when they have in Kodberg, their DVD and opera. And then the opera was composed and released, etc. But later on, you can find that they were they have the largest tour dates, when it comes at the edge of time, at the edge of time, So very complex biography book with lots of stuff, and there were already some suggestions, but it will be not like that. That is going to be trilogy.
Oh, really?
Because
make sure, guys, it doesn't take like Tolkien to release it 30-something years.
As I said, it will be released as a post-mortem.
Oh, crap.
Post-mortem, all of us, because there is so much things to do still, and there are lots of interviews that we have done. Okay, maybe I have done with Hansi, but also Mark has done a lot of interviews with not only with the band members, but there were so many interviews with the other people, like like Andreas Marshall, the producers of that time, cover artists of that time. Even they dig up the former label No Remorse Records,
Yeah.
which published first Blind Guardian issues at that time. They found even that guy who was actually the first chiefing editor of German Metal Hammer. I didn't know actually if he's alive at this point. He's like 17 years old or something like that. So there are so many stories, so many tales, and I think when it comes to release date, we have spoken so much time about that, but we think it will be 2022 at the fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. We have already done a lot of things so far, but Mark has a very complex, way to do all this stuff together, and you can already check out the part of biography. It is already released on Imagination from the Other Side live CD and
the video part,
DVD. Yeah. So you can already. We have written, Mark and I, the story around there, and Mark has shaped it. But this is, it is like 6 or 7 pages, but it is like a very small story of what we did about Imaginations.
That's interesting.
You cannot believe how many details and how many, interesting things appear from the various different times of periods when it comes to Blind Guardian. And as I said, maybe Blind Guardian is not the biggest band, but it is one of the bands that has the strongest fan base.
That is true. It's a very dedicated fan base.
Yeah, strongest fan base when it comes to that. So, and they were a very influential band. Mm-hmm. When they influence you, you listen to them, all the time. All the years. I listened to Blind Guardian for like 30 years, more or less, like now, each day, in one way or another, if you get what I mean. Yeah. So, it doesn't matter, maybe sometimes even more. So, when it comes Blind Guardian, definitely what we have learned, even Hansi and I, is very complex band with a complex history, completely different from the other bands. But of course, there are some funny, details and memories which you will probably read in the book. I really hope 2022, because
it's pretty cool.
We are working very hard. For example, in this moment, Hansi and I, we are stuck in Beyond the Red Mirror.
Okay.
Phase.
Okay, so it's close by already.
But when it comes to the other, members, I don't know. Andre, it's like Hopper, I don't know. Okay. I'm not quite. And there is still more information coming.
That's cool, man. Well, that's actually exciting news, man. Thanks for sharing. I don't want to keep you here for too long, Marko, because I know you have other stuff to do. So just a couple of more questions, and this is a fun part which we usually do to close the episode, and I'm absolutely eager to hear that from you, man. What is your one guilty pleasure in terms of music? What do you blast when no one listens to if it's not metal? Is it like Justin Bieber or Backstreet Boys, someone like that?
I could recall actually when I was very young at that time and when I started to listen metal, but it was very, very now 30 years ago, 31, even more. I was started to listen metal with some bands, but I was not so satisfied, so I stopped.
Okay.
But I was very young, like 11 or 12. So there was like Skid Row or something like that. Glam metal was popular at that time. Yeah. So I was found actually quite a lot, as Peter Steele from Type O Negative said many times, that Madonna and even some other bands were darkened their metal stuff. And actually, yes, if you check out the videos from Pet Shop Boys, Madonna, and all the pop stuff during the very beginning and in the middle of 90s, they were very dark.
Remember that You'll See video from Madonna? Man, that was creepy.
Yeah, I'm speaking here maybe about the songs like Deeper and Deeper and all the stuff, because later on I have learned that also the people who were producing these videos were occultists as well. So you can see even inverted crosses in Pet Shop Boys.
It's interesting. Wow.
If you can, if you see it regularly, you can see inverted crosses. So I was always inspired by the so to say the music from 80s and 90s when it comes to all the stuff. I loved. Even now I love to hear, because it reminds me for perhaps some happier times. So to say, all the 90s were definitely darker age, so to say, when it comes to all of music. So I have no problems at all to listen 80s and 90s, and this music always inspired me. And as Peter Steele has already added, I don't know if I am born now or if I could, listen metal scene or follow now, perhaps I will not listen it at all. Perhaps I will listen this music from the 80s and 90s.
Okay, that's interesting, man. And the last one. What is your one craziest rock story from concert times?
But to be honest, I have been to so many festivals and concerts so far, it's very hard to tell craziest, when I was completely, out of madness. But 2013, we were in Germany, actually, at Geiselwind. I cannot recall the name of the festival, really, in this moment. But it was very cold, although it was a June. Nevertheless, and was very cold the third day, and I speak to myself. It was like, okay, I spoke to myself. Okay, this time I will be not so wild, so to say, because it's very cold, etc. I have done some interviews and met with some bands. It was all, and then Moonspell played, and it was great show, and I really completely lost myself. And then Blind Guardian was on the open stage, and it was brutally cold, and I was only in t-shirt, and this was like 50 degrees. No, once again, I completely lost myself. I cannot recall, how, and all the day I was, with Jack Daniels.
Very
trying to recover myself and push it, until completely I lost the energy, so to say. But this is only one story. All the people who were are watching this will remember back in 2015, the flood. There was flood and mud in the worst way. So we were completely swimming in the mud. This was the worst. So to say. But it was cold. Brutally. It was like November, like autumn days, and I just jumped from the metal days when it was like 40 degrees to 5 degrees in Hamburg, in Germany. So it was, I don't know, but always when Hypocrisy played, I was always crazy, So it's more about the music. It's not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, definitely. But my life was, more inspired by the music and traveling to music festivals, listening to music, reading the books. But it was, I have to say, and we always agree with Hansi and I, it was a kind of escapism, so to say, from the real world. If you get what I mean, any other day.
Hopefully, though, hopefully that all this madness around the world will be ends very soon, and all of us will be able to travel to the festivals once again. The sooner the better. Everyone, I think, at this point is super eager to start doing that once again, including myself. I haven't traveled anywhere for the past year like everyone else, and and I'm really eager to do that, man. Perfect, Marko. Thank you so much for your time, man. Appreciate it a lot.
Thanks much as well.
Any last message for the old Numenor fans and the new ones who are going to be watching you?
Yeah, I would like to thank you and all the people around the world. And we have learned that Numenor people are listening Numenor from all the corners of the world. It doesn't matter, from the Greece to Norway, Japan to America, Latin America, what else? I would like to thank them, greatly for listening to our music and understanding our style, because it's very unique and it's not so easy to get into the realms of Numenor music, if you get what I mean, because it's very unique mixture, and the message is not the easiest one, so to say. So I would like to thank to greet them and send a great thanks to them as well. So we will hopefully try to record some new stuff as well, and I would like also to finish this book about Blind Guardian as well. This is my life, a quest in my life, so to say.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much. Just as a reminder, Numenor's Draconian Age is already out on March 5th. It was via Elevate Records. Make sure you check it out if you haven't heard it yet. And if you have, share your personal story and what you personally think about this album, of course, in the comments. Marko, thanks a lot for your time, man. Keep rocking.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
All the best until the next time.
Thanks, man.